All right, today we're going to talk about a force for good that's, so often misunderstood and wildly underestimated. It's not this big, loud thing. It's a power that doesn't shout. It just quietly revolutionizes everything it touches. So yeah, let's dive right in. Welcome to another edition of the Doer's Digest. You know the drill. This is the part of our explainer that's all about rolling up our sleeves and turning big ideas into real practice. It's for all of us who want to stop just thinking about making a difference and actually, do it. Okay, so let's just kick things off with a big question, one that kind of flips what we normally think right on its head. What if kindness isn't this soft, passive thing? What if it's actually your greatest strength, your most strategic, most powerful asset? Think about that for a second. So, to really dig into this, we're going to look at our anchor text today, 2 Samuel chapter 9. And you really got to get the context here to feel the weight of this story. Back in the day, when a new king came to power, the first thing on the to-do list was, pretty brutal. It was to eliminate all potential rivals. I mean, every single heir from the old dynasty. It was just standard procedure. But this story, it's not about that. It's not about clashing swords or some big political drama. It's about something much quieter. A revolution, really. Built on a choice that went against everything people expected. And this is the promise that sparks that whole revolution. King David says this to a guy named Mephibosheth, who happens to be the last living heir of a rival family. I mean, this is the guy David is supposed to eliminate. But instead of taking him out, David offers him kindness, restoration, and a permanent place at the table. Just incredible. And this contrast is everything. It's the key to understanding what David did here. The normal playbook for a king was all about using power to break things, to divide people, to secure your throne with brute force. But David, he chooses mercy. And mercy is a force that rebuilds what power so often just shatters. He chooses to restore, not destroy. So what's the big takeaway from this story? What's it really showing us? Well, a few things. First, kindness isn't naive, right? It can be a really strategic and, sometimes sacrificial choice. Second, real restoration isn't just about charity or giving handouts. It's about honoring someone's dignity. And third, that when we're faithful to our promises, that act can echo for generations, way after we're gone. Okay, so how do we take this amazing ancient story and make it something we can actually hold on to today? Let's break it down into 3 timeless truths. These are the principles that fuel that quiet revolution of kindness, not just thousands of years ago, but right here, right now in our own lives. And here they are, real simple. Number 1, grace is hospitality. Number 2, leadership is mercy. And number 3, promises are currency. Let's unpack what each of those really means. This first one, it's so powerful because it's so simple. Grace doesn't have to be some huge abstract idea. So often, it just looks like, hospitality. The simple, tangible act of sharing a meal or pulling up a chair for someone. It's about making someone who feels totally invisible suddenly feel seen and valued. All right, the second truth is all about leadership. And look, real leadership isn't just about being in charge. It's about being willing to pay the price for mercy. It means using whatever influence you have, whatever resources you've got to protect the vulnerable, to restore them, not to punish them or just pretend they don't exist. And number 3 is all about the power of our words. Our promises, they're like currency. They have actual value, and they have the power to literally shape someone's future. When we keep our word, especially when it's hard, we're building a legacy of trust, a legacy of hope. Okay, so we've got the big ideas, the principles. Now, this is the Doer's Digest, so let's get to the heart of it, right? Your practical playbook. Let's talk about how you can take these truths and put them into action, like this week. Here are a few simple but really powerful moves you can make. First, find one person, just one, who's been forgotten or overlooked, and invite them in. Next, when you help someone, don't just give a handout. Restore their dignity by giving them a real role. Then, actually write down a promise you've made and follow through. Use your influence, whatever it is, to defend someone who's vulnerable. And finally, practice what you might call radical remembrance, just actively remembering and honoring the commitments you've made. And let's make this even more real. What does this look like? Well, at work, maybe you don't just praise that overlooked teammate, you invite them to co-lead a project.
In your family, maybe you don't wait for that distant relative to reach out. You call them and offer them a seat at the next gathering. And in your community, maybe it's about organizing support that actually lets people choose the help they need, giving them back their agency.
Now, let's be real for a second. None of this is easy. It actually takes a lot of courage. So consider this next part a little pep talk for the brave. A pep talk for every single one of us who is ready to do this hard but incredibly important work. Because here's the thing, real restoration, it happens where your generosity meets your courage. You need both. You need that giving spirit, but you also need a brave heart that's willing to step into messy situations and choose kindness, especially when it's the last thing you feel like doing. And that's because this path, it has a cost. You're not always going to get a round of applause for choosing the table over the throne, for choosing relationship over reputation, or generosity over your own convenience. But that's the work of the brave, right there.
So here's the challenge, and it comes straight from our anchor story. Be brave enough to welcome the wounded, and be steady enough to keep your word, especially when it would be so much easier to just let it go.
Okay, let's bring this all home. Let's look at the result of this kind of covenant kindness. It all comes full circle, right back to that powerful image we started with. And this is the final outcome. The story doesn't end with Mephibosheth as some kind of charity case. No way. It ends with him completely restored, eating at the king's table, and get this, as one of the king's sons. That's the power we're talking about. It's not just help, it's complete restoration. It's belonging. So as we wrap up this explainer, I just want to leave you with this one question to carry with you. It's a question for every single one of us in the Doer's Digest. Just look around your life, your work, your family, your community, and ask yourself this: who has a forgotten seat at your table?